There's a famous quote by William Powell that says that power must be taken, it is never given. In society, we say that politics is dirty, and it's true. But why is that the case? In this video, we look at why politics is dirty and the different forms that it's taken in Kenya. My name is Susan Wanjiku. I'm the founder of Wanjiku's Eye, and here I discuss the relationship between economic development and governance so that you can understand, engage, and influence the matters that affect you and I. Welcome to Wanjiku's Eye. Hi again. Welcome to part 4 of the Real Mheshimiwa Series, where I'm doing some civic education and bringing some things into your consciousness as we gear towards the elections. So first things first, let's understand the difference between politics and governance, because I know the difference might not be that clear and most times I use interchangeably. Now, politics is a competition and battle to determine how the resources in a country will be used, managed, or controlled. And by resources here, we are talking about land, minerals, the citizens, our finances as a country, information, and many other different resources. But this management, control, and utilization of a country's resources is only done by a government. They are the only ones who have that power and the legal authority to do that. And they do that through the laws, policies, and the regulations. So you can say that politics is a competition to get into government or to influence what the government is doing. So there are many definitions for politics. And governance in the context of a country is basically the act of governing, which is basically how you're running the country. And how are the systems and the institutions in a country working together to achieve certain goals for the country. So to govern, according to the dictionary, is to conduct the policy, actions, and affairs of a state with authority. For example, Uhuru Kenyatta is a politician and is also governing the country. And Raila, before the handshake, was a politician, but he wasn't governing. And the people who govern the country are politicians who are elected into office, plus people hired into the government in whatever sector. So it's possible to be a politician without getting into government, and you can be in government without being a politician. I hope the difference between governance and politics is now clear. Now, it's important to understand that politics is dirty for no other reason besides what's at stake. And the first thing that's at stake is power. And power is the ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. So imagine being able to use the law, the criminal justice system, KRA, the police to serve your personal agenda. Like if I feel like Susan is exposing me too much on her platform, I can just send some guys over, harass her, silence her and her followers, and absolutely nothing is going to happen to me. And that is an example of power. So you impose your will on people and institutions. Power is tied to the second thing, which is to have command over resources through policies and regulations, and to have control over our land, minerals, and finances as a country. For example, imagine that just by the power of your signature, you can borrow money on the country's account, and thereafter, you can decide what you want to do with that money. If you want it to be diverted to your personal account to some foreign countries, if you want to give it to your friends and family, you can do that. Then you know at the end of the day that citizens are still going to pay the money that you borrowed, come rain, come sunshine. Then imagine having access to all tenders, or again, just by your signature. Someone will have to remit 60% of their salary as tax to the government instead of the current 30%. Then the third thing is to have influence over the citizens and over public institutions. Influence here meaning that you can get people to buy into your agenda, or you can affect their beliefs and behaviors, meaning you can direct them to do something. You can direct someone to do something and they will do it. Like Raila told his supporters ODM supporters in 2017 not to vote in the repeat elections, and they didn't show up. And then Kenyatta won a second time. And a popular technique to gain influence is to speak to people's fears, needs, and emotions, which takes me to number 4, information. Guys, information rules, and governments or political leaders can and will kill because of information. And that's the information that we as the citizens have, or the information that we don't have is what actually keeps people in power and maintains their influence. And that's why politics is dirty, because they don't want, they want to control the information that you have by either giving you the facts, making sure you don't have the facts, or the facts that you have are twisted. They are half lies and half truth, and you know it's difficult to make a judgment based on that. And it's very intentional because it does two things. It shapes your opinions and it manages your behavior. For example, we know that Kenya is heavily indebted. So imagine if it was discovered that cash was just stashed in the president and his family's accounts, and tenders were just given to like family and friends of the president, yet all other Kenyans are suffering because of all this debt. So what do you think would be the possible reactions of Kenyans? I'm sure violence is one very real possibility, which could lead to even toppling of the Kenyan government, like the Sri Lanka situation. And that's why we normally say that governments need to be transparent. It's a democratic goal, but that's exactly why governments don't want to be transparent. And this is not just in Kenya. Most governments don't want to be transparent. And those who expose information normally disappear, or their lives are made totally miserable, like what's currently happening to Julian Assange and the whole WikiLeaks saga, where he leaked publications which exposed what the US Army was doing in Afghanistan and Iraq. And he did this expose over 10 years ago, but to date they're still trying to extradite him to the US from the UK so that he can be charged with something in the likes of conspiracy to reveal national defense stuff. So anyway, so dirty politics. Dirty politics didn't begin with the Jubilee government. It's a worldwide thing for the reasons that I've given. And the first time that politics was dirty in this country was during the fight for independence. And during this period, the British formed a majority of the Kenyan government, and Kenyans, my focus being on Mau Mau, from the opposition. And what was the battle for? One, it was the power be given back to the Kenyans, and that just meant that the British would no longer have the power to make decisions about Kenya and for Kenyans. And two, we wanted our land and freedom back. So was this just handed to them? No, obviously not. It led to a bloodbath. Many people lost their lives, and the Mau Mau killed anyone who they thought was an apologist of the British government, both Kenyans and the British. The colonizers also heavily deployed weapons in the army, plus Kikuyus were put into concentration camps because all of them were seen as suspects. And the colonizers killed way more people, just for the record. So how did the British manage to maintain influence over Kenya during this fighting period? First thing, they deceived the Kenyans by resettling and concentrating them in villages. And they told them that they were doing this to protect them from the Mau Mau.
In rural areas, Kikuyu were pushed into specially built fortified villages where they lived under 23-hour curfew. This policy, known as villagization, gave the colonial authorities total control over the tribe. The government portrayed it as purely protective and beneficial for the Africans.
During the emergency, the Kikuyu were concentrated into villages as a protection against Mau Mau, and quickly recognized the advantages of this organization.
And on top of that, they lied to their own people that they were bringing civilization into Kenya. Like, you know, just trading, building roads and railways, just vibes. But what they hid from their own people is the torture, violence, and atrocities that came with this apparent civilization.
A year into the emergency, more shocking stories about troop brutality began to surface. In November 1953, Captain Gerald Griffiths of the King's African Rifles hit the headlines in Britain when, in the course of his court-martial for murdering an African worker, he admitted to paying his men 5 shillings a head for every mouth. For the first time, the full horror of what had been happening in Kenya was revealed to a shocked public. Suddenly, it was the British authorities who looked like brutal thugs. In the House of Commons, the scandal brought condemnation from all sides. The Labour MP Barbara Castle had been monitoring reports of British brutality throughout the Mau Mau crisis. She was sceptical when she read the first reports of Hola.
A story appeared in the press that 11 Africans had died. But the explanation given by the Europeans in control of the camp was they died drinking water from a water cart. Well, I mean, I could guess that another cover-up was taking place, but I felt pretty helpless.
And when it was discovered, that's when the pressure started coming from their own people to leave Kenya. And even then, things didn't change. After independence to this day, politics is still dirty, and it will continue to be dirty. So how the governments of Jomo Kenyatta and Moi were filled with high-profile assassinations, with the first political assassination happening just 2 years after Kenya gained independence in 1965. And the first guy to be assassinated by the government was actually a man who fought in Mau Mau, and his name was General Baimungi Marete. And then after that, there's Piogama Pinto, JM Karaoke, Tomboya, Roberto Uko, and many others who also died under mysterious circumstances. And JM Karaoke is the guy who's famously known for Kenya has become a country of 10 millionaires and 10 million beggars, and this is in the 70s. And also during that time, protests were so violent and people would be abducted and taken to Nyayo House and tortured and sometimes even to death. Even this wonderful lady I'm seated in front of, a lady I really admire, Wangari Maathai, the Shori for the forests, according to Gen Z. She not only fought for the protection of our land as Kenya, the conservation of the environment and the public spaces you enjoy today, like Karura Forest and Uhuru Park, but she also relentlessly fought for all the democratic rights you enjoy today, including the right of me sitting here and speaking about these things. And she was humiliated and arrested and jailed severally for it. And during those days, like, Moi was treating Kenya like private property, just dishing out land to his friends, his family, and everyone just gets a piece of land. Come to the politics of today, that takes a more subtle form than it did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I call it subtle because if you're not keen, or if you're a culprit of those biases I mentioned in the democracy video, tribal, making an idol of political leaders, sycophancy, you're going to miss exactly what is going on in the political space. So the tactics of today are more psychological with the intention to deceive you. And to deceive, according to the dictionary, is to deliberately cause someone to believe something that is not true for personal gain. And they like using the law and a lot of semantics. I'll give an example of each. First thing, propaganda. And activists are often a target for this, especially the ones who are vocal about corruption issues. Like, what do they tell you? The common thing is that someone is trying to destabilize the government, and they are doing this through like activist X. And what's the goal of this strategy? It's to make you completely discredit the activist. And what's the outcome? Kenyans take this as the gospel truth and run with it. Like, an activist may be putting their entire life on the line trying to pass a message across to Kenyans about what's going on in the government, but Kenyans will become so preoccupied with this story that they've been fed. And while you're consuming such information and taking it as the gospel truth, you forget to ask yourself, since the government has all the access to such information, why haven't they officially pressed charges? Second thing, rigging in party primaries. So let me first explain what happens in party primaries. Let's say that there are two people from the same political party and they're both interested in vying for the same seat, let's say like for governor. The party has to choose one person to run for that seat under the political party. So how do they choose? Sometimes they can either do a election with for the registered members of that political party to decide which of them should run. Option 2, they just ask you to step down in favor of someone else, and sometimes they can be paid off in the process. And option 3, the candidate who's been asked to step down in favor of the other and they don't want to, sometimes they choose to run as an independent candidate or go vie for that seat in a different party. Now, the party primaries that were recently concluded left a lot of bitterness for both the aspirants and the citizens. For example, the governor seat for Nairobi, Team Wanyonyi was asked to drop out of the race in favor of Polycarp Igathe. And this is despite the fact that Team had already done a lot of campaigning and had gathered a lot of support. For the record, they're both in Azimio. Now, such a scenario serves two agendas. It takes away choice from the people, and someone is placed there and funded so that they can serve someone else's agenda. And I explained this in my previous video where I said some politicians are just politicians as special purpose vehicles. Third thing, running smear campaigns and character assassination against a political opponent. And I believe Mukisa Kitui became a victim of this because as soon as he declared his intention to vie for presidency and he started doing a lot of media rounds and interviews, a sex scandal and nudes happened. And the objective of such things is to serve as a distraction, such that whenever you hear the name of this person, you don't remember what exactly they stood for or what they were advocating for. The only thing that you remembered is the sex scandal. And guys, sex scandals have brought down presidents. And especially in a moral police society like Kenya, sex scandals can do wonders to destroy someone's reputation completely. Number 4 is convenient accusations. Now, these convenient accusations normally happen when a politician either challenges the government or supports an opposing political party. For example, let's just be honest. This whole fiasco about Sakaja versus the state with regards to having a university degree when you want to vie for governor has absolutely nothing to do with the degree requirement. Like, let's just agree, if we're still a part of Jubilee, this issue would have been swept under the rug. It actually would have never come to light. And Sakaja is just one example. So what's the objective of convenient accusations? It has absolutely nothing to do with public interest, FYI. It's all about making the target retreat and surrender. And please mark my words, I am not saying any of them are innocent. What I'm saying is, with the impunity in this country, you're safe from being implicated for your crimes for as long as you are loyal to the government of the day or the person who got you into power. And at the same time, it serves as an example to show politicians that if you defect and take away your loyalty from someone, you're gonna pay for it. And the effect is plain and simple. Which politician do you expect to be courageous enough to question the government or vote for laws that are in the interest of the public, yet they know that they could be exposed for what they've done? In fact, if on the rival side, we could be like, what even gives you the moral authority to comment about X and X matter? And what remains of our Kenya is that we become a rotten system indefinitely, as people are held hostage for their sins. Number 5 is using a lot of legalese, and by this I mean conveniently invoking the law in Kenya. And this is also in line with convenient accusations. For example, Miguna Miguna's deportation. For those who don't know, Miguna Miguna is a man famously known for the line, "I am not boarding." And he's the guy who is very loud, fierce, fearless, and unapologetic when speaking against the corruption in this government. He is also the man who swore in Raila Odinga as the people's president. And he's also the man who was deported from the country in the name of he isn't a Kenyan citizen because he holds a Canadian passport.
I'm not boarding, I don't have a passport. I'm not boarding. I'm not going. Where my luggage? Where is my passport? I'm not going anywhere.
And what the government managed to do very successfully was to have Kenyans get carried away into this endless debate of whether the status of his citizenship justified his deportation. And this is despite the fact that before being deported, Miguna Miguna had a very long career in Kenyan politics, and he even ran for the governor's seat in Nairobi in 2017. So for information, the court has ruled, I think, thrice that Miguna Miguna should be allowed back into the country. So if you're watching this, please be mindful that you seeming woke by saying the law is the law and by getting carried away into some arguments actually reinforces and strengthens the impunity in the government. So when you see some of these things happening, ask yourself, why now? There were always many other points in time to bring up the issue, but why in that particular moment? After all those years, why does it matter now? So if you're not keen, you're going to be carried into a debate that's meant to take you away from the real issue, which again is power play. Number 6 is misinformation and disinformation. Disinformation means to give someone false information deliberately. And we are experiencing it with such a heavy force as we gear towards elections. There's a lot of propaganda coming from both camps, both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. And the worst thing is that because we are living in the age of social media, information spreads in seconds, regardless of whether it's true or false. And guys, we are fueling a fire that we might not be able to stop, and we might all regret it. So before you share something, as much as the political candidate you don't support is trending or is on the spot for something and you feel like you really want to cheer, before you share, please make sure that you can verify that it's truthful, factual, and it's not misleading, because you could be used as an instrument for post-election violence, and a war or post-election violence could be brewing right before everyone's eyes, and we will all be responsible at that particular point if you're not conscious of this information that you're sharing out that is not exactly true. And remember, I think in my previous video or the other one, I said that the fact that both camps, Camp Azimio and Camp Kenya Kwanza, both of them feel and are 100 or 99% sure that they're going to win. And that is something that should be very scary to all. And polls just being engineered to reflect the same. So when it comes to election time and when the results are announced, people are going to be like, why didn't we win? We're the ones who should have won. You know, if everyone is so adamant and they are completely convinced that they're the ones who should have won, then definitely you're brewing post-election violence, because people are going to say that the results are false. No matter who wins, people will say the results are false. Then obviously there's a more outright dirt in politics. Being killed for political reasons is still very real in this country. Then we have threats, harassment by the criminal justice system, the police. Like, you could be arrested illegally if you're protesting about the cost of living, no matter how peaceful you are. And the goal obviously is to serve as an example of what will happen to you if you dare challenge the system, and ultimately to make everyone else fearful, and because of that you all remain silent. Finally, there's the rigging in the general elections, and even funding and mobilizing people to violence during campaigns and after elections. So in conclusion, the more impunity there is in a country, the dirtier the politics will be in that country. And politics is dirty for just 4 reasons: power, our money and our resources, retaining and growing influence over people, and controlling information. When you understand what's at stake, the more you should feel compelled to actually do something for your country. I've put some useful links in the description box if you want to read more, and also make sure you check out the playlist that I created for you, where you can learn the real history of Kenya and the fight for freedom and independence and post-independence Kenya. Remember that all the rights that you enjoy, I will not stop emphasizing, someone else fought for, and if you don't fight to keep it, it will be taken away. And remember that at the end of the day, you are the real Mheshimiwa. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment. We need more people who are politically enlightened to make more informed choices when it comes to voting, and for you to just question your biases. Kuna watu wakiona something being spread about Raila, they're like, wow, imagine, spread it more. Same thing to guys who are against Ruto. They're like, this dude is, I don't know, what do you call these people? But anyway, you're so happy that the person who you don't support is being trolled, regardless of whether it's true or whether it's false. Remember, you're gonna be part of the problem. If post-election violence happens because of all this misinformation, you're gonna be the problem. Anyway, I will see you in the next video, where I will be talking about who you will be voting for. So all those positions, what's the role of all these people, from the president, the MP, senators, governors, women rep, MCAs, senators, what's their role in the overall governance of Kenya? So if you want to understand that, I'm sure most people don't know their role. We are all here to learn. I will see you in the next one. Make sure you share with your friends. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Cheers.